Hello, Gavin here, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at this funny little box. So if you've been anywhere near a guitar website or social media page lately, you'll have likely heard some buzz about this pedal. This is the 1991 pedal from Funny Little Boxes, and I just so happen to be one of the first people to have one of these pedals. This is the first pedal designed by Andy over at Funny Little Boxes, done in collaboration with Let's Play All, which is a YouTube channel and Instagram account. Really great content, highly recommend checking them out. I'll have some links in the description down below. And it was built in collaboration with Soundlad Liverpool, who are responsible for awesome pedals like the Scran, which I've also got a video coming very soon on this one. This pedal is named the 1991, and that's a reference to the band it's trying to emulate the tones of. That's Pedal Jam, in particular the album 10. This is an album that does hold a special place in my heart, particularly due to the fretless bass tones on some of the songs. But this is actually aimed at the guitar sounds, emulating the cranked Marshall being pushed with the pedal tones that you would hear on that album. And the controls on this pedal really give you variations of that sound. You have two gain controls which feed into each other. You have a master volume and then a 3-band EQ. And one thing you'll likely notice very quickly if you buy this pedal is it rolls off a lot of bottom end, which of course sounds awesome on guitar, gives you a really nice guitar tone for in the mix, but will likely leave you thinking, well, this isn't going to be very good on bass. Well, I'm actually here to prove you wrong today, because there's actually a lot of really good uses for that type of tone on bass. So rather than stacking loads of bottom end on this pedal in the amp or in the software and telling you it's awesome and that's why it's a great sounding pedal, I'm not going to do that. Rather, I'm going to show you some cool bass tones and some tips on when you can use a tone like this pedal has. But before we get into any of that, I just want to confirm one thing. I am not paid to make this video. This is a pedal I bought. Yes, I do have number 3, which is really cool. But I paid for this, and I'm only making this pedal because I really like it, and I really like the whole ethos of what Andy over at Funny Little Boxes is doing with his shop, but also with this pedal. And a little bit of housekeeping on the rig today. We're running direct into my Markbass, which is being used basically as a DI box, feeding the DI out of that into Ableton through my interface. And I'm also running my Ibanez 6-string bass today. And this is running in the passive mode for all of the clips, so the preamp's turned off, and you're just going to hear both the neck and the bridge pickup, or one or the other for the various clips. But I'll annotate all of that on screen for the different clips. So the first sound we're looking at today is a biamp rig. Now this is a really common thing for bass players nowadays, and it's a really good way of achieving a really nice distorted tone without losing bottom end. I know that sounds contradictory to what we're doing with this pedal, but this is actually where this pedal comes in really handy. Because we can use this pedal through the amp, roll off the bottom end and get a really nice, bright, distorted tone. And that gets recorded on one channel. But then we can also, in parallel with that, have a clean DI recording. For that this week, we are using the Behringer BDI21. It's a really simple preamp, nothing too crazy. It can do nice drive tones on its own actually. In fact, I think I used that in the DI video that I did previously. Maybe put a link to that in the description. But really the use for this today is as a good simple clean DI running in parallel with 1991. So you've got a good clean DI with all the bottom end left on it with this one, and not a lot of character in the top end, and all of the distortion in the top end and mid grill that you'd want from this pedal in parallel. So you've got all the bright distortion from this, all the weight of the clean tone with this, and they're running in parallel. So you actually heard that in the clip at the introduction to this video. But what we're going to do now is listen to that same clip again. But when we listen to it now, we're going to hear just the clean tone, then just the overdrive, and then the two paired up, and we'll cut between all of that. So you can see how they all add up for one really big bass tone. So let's listen to that now. So next up, we're looking at playing alongside subby kick drums and synth bass. This is much more common than you would think now. In fact, there was a really good interview about this done by a bass player on That Pedal show, maybe about a year ago now. And it was the bass player for Kylie Minogue and Jess Glynn. I know names you're not likely to hear on this channel very often, but this is a really good example because he was having to play bass guitar alongside synth bass. And to do that, he was using an overdriven bass tone without very much bottom end, kind of directly in this pedal's wheelhouse. So we're going to do that today. We're going to keep the bass line simple. It's just going to be pretty much straight eighth notes, palm muted, and then just wide open with a bit of grit on them. Again, the tone settings for this will be on the screen, and so will the settings for the bass. And when you listen to this track, you'll notice that the synth has all the weight in the bottom end. That synth bass is providing all of that alongside a really subby 808 kick drum. So the bass doesn't even have to provide the bottom end here. Really, we're just providing that grit and character on top of the subby synth sounds. So let's check that out now in the next clip. Next up, we're going to look at using this just for a really cool tone, because nowhere does it say that our bass has to be subby and lots of bottom end on it. In fact, Lemmy didn't use a tone that had really any bottom end on it at all. It was borderline a guitar tone. And then even bass players like Chris Squire and Geddy Lee from Rush, they didn't use bass tones that were super subby. If anything, they had a lot of mid-range growl. Moving forward, we'll also have the modern solo bass tones, so solo bass players and even bass being used as a melodic instrument. I personally use those types of sounds, and in fact that's where this is living in my rig for the most part, is for the melodic side of things. With the 6-string bass with that high C, along with obviously the other high strings, this combines to give me the guitar side of the melodies I'm doing. So in the next clip, we're going to use it in that exact scenario. We're going to play something melodic. This is by no means a bass line, this is playing melodies. And it's a job bass players are doing more and more just now, particularly in the solo bass or bass-led worlds. So we're going to use it for that tone. We've actually got 2 tracks playing, and they're going to be panned left and right, and they have a little bit of delay on them, so you're hearing this in a real-world situation, exactly how I would use it in my music. So let's listen to that now. And next up, we're going to look at something that's, again, a massive part of my type of playing, and that's synth bass. As usual for these videos, whenever you hear these synth bass sounds, I am using an octave pedal. It's an octave generator from Gojira FX. I'm using the dry signal up all the way, so you hear the overdrive going into it. Then I'm also using the -1 octave all the way up, and the -2 octave up quite high as well. Not using the +1 because I want you to hear the character of the overdrive. And then that's running into the Boss EH3 phase shifter pedal. So running this overdrive before all of that gives me that nice character going in. I could have used a clean sound, but this just gives me a really different character. And again, just gives me something different I can do with synth bass that none of my other pedals are going to give, because this won't have as much bottom end. And as a result of having the -2 octaves, I can play higher notes on the bass but still get some massive subbiness underneath. So it works really well with the 6-string bass. So let's check that out in the next clip. In conclusion, what do I think of this pedal? Well, it's probably no surprise to hear that I really like this. Is this going to be the overdrive pedal that does all your overdrive tones? No. And it shouldn't be, because it's a pedal trying to emulate a very specific sound. And that's awesome. We've got lots of great overdrive pedals out there. I personally have loads that I love. The Mr. Sparkle from Gojira, great bass heavy overdrive pedal. I showed earlier, the Scran from Soundlad Liverpool, another really great and really versatile pedal actually. There's the Deluxe Drive from Bad Penny Effects. These are all great pedals that have lots of bottom end. So this pedal doing something completely different is brilliant. It's an overdrive that I can put on my board and get a completely different sound to any other overdrive I have. And for that, this is really awesome for me. I think Andy's done a great job of designing this. Yes, on guitar it does achieve that pedal jam vibe, It's not really how I use it, but it does achieve that. For me, I can get some melody sounds that go from warm, slightly driven tones all the way through to really high gain actually. For bass, I can use it alongside a parallel clean tone to get a really huge sounding overdriven tone. I can pair it up with my octavers to get a different flavour of synth bass. Then I can also use it on my bass to thin down my tone, give me a nice bit of grit, to then cut through a mix that's full of synthesizers and 808 kicks. So for all these reasons, this is going to be staying in my rig and I don't see it leaving anytime soon. So as the outro to this video, we're going to look at a mix using a few of the sounds we listened to today. We're going to use the melody track we listened to earlier, with the melodies panned left and right and the delays that bounced across. But we're going to use that over the top of the subby track. So that's the track where we used the thin down bass tone with a bit of grit on it, alongside the subby synthesizers and 808 kicks. So when we add all that up, you get a nice full mix, and you'll hear multiple ways that this pedal has made its way into my rig. So that'll be the outro track for today's video. But before we get to that, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate that, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe down below, clicking the bell icon to be notified of more content when it comes out. And also in the comment section, let me know what you thought about this video, what your favourite sounds were. I'd love to hear what you all thought of this one. Particularly if you're a bass player who's maybe tried some of these sounds, or better yet, has other ideas of where this could be useful in a bass player's rig, particularly in this modern age of electric bass. So thanks again for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, keep working on those bass faces.